I was watching Rick Beato's video about how nu metal killed 90s alternative rock, and one of the bands he highlighted was Live. He also discussed Third Eye Blind, who I've already done a video on. The link is down below. After watching Rick's video and looking at my video request form, which people can submit ideas on, Live kept coming up again and again. So it's time that I answer the question, whatever happened to 90s alternative rockers Live? Stay tuned for the full story. Made up of singer and guitarist Ed Kowalczyk, guitarist Chad Taylor, bassist Patrick Dahlheimer, and drummer Chad Gracey, the roots of the band dated back to 1984 in York, Pennsylvania, where all four members grew up and met. Their musical beginnings started in the 8th grade when Gracey, Taylor, and Dahlheimer played in an instrumental band called First Aid. Kowalczyk was the last member to join the band after the quartet were encouraged by their junior high school teacher to form a band for an 8th grade talent show. Kowalczyk originally wanted to join the band as a guitarist, but they already had someone who played lead. The band knew he could sing and talked him into becoming the singer and rhythm guitar player. His audition would consist of him belting out a Duran Duran cover tune. Taking the stage name Public Affection, they developed into a competent live cover band whose early shows saw the group play sets consisting of songs by the Psychedelic Furs, Violent Femmes, REM, U2, and Bryan Adams. Kowalczyk would tell the LA Times, "We all learned a lot from a book about U2, referring to the book Unforgettable Fire." While guitarist Chad Taylor would add, "We related to U2 so much. Reading the biography was in many ways like reading a story about ourselves, except with different names." And by 1987, the band started writing their own material, and rockstar fantasies weren't far from the members' minds, with Taylor telling the LA Times, "Ed and I would sit in the back of our classrooms, and instead of working on calculus, we'd think about the kind of tour bus we'd have." While school may have afforded the members a place to daydream, it was also instrumental to their success. The members would credit several music teachers with helping them learn song arrangements, orchestration, and music theory that they would rely on to craft their songs. Another piece of the puzzle was their hometown of York, Pennsylvania, a working-class town where Harley-Davidson and Caterpillar factories employed a lot of the town's faithful. It served as an inspiration for their music. One of the first gigs the band had was an inaugural dance at the Temple Beth Israel in York. The band followed it up with another gig at the Temple, selling tickets at $4 a piece. Before they knew it, 400 people paid the ticket price to see the band play, and some people had to be turned away at the door. That's when they knew they were onto something. The band would soon be booking gigs at local venues, and they even landed themselves a manager in David Sestak, who initially refused calls to work with the band. It wasn't until Chad Taylor's father phoned Sestak, and according to Spin Magazine, told him, "Either you're going to listen to the band or you're going to make the biggest mistake of your life." Sestak liked what he heard, but he told the band they needed an album so they could go to record labels and try to get a contract. The band proved to be business savvy. They raised $5,000 in cash from junk bonds that they sold to family and friends who bought shares in their debut album at $100 a piece. That seed money would help the band release their record 1988's The Death of a Dictionary under the moniker Public Affection. It would be released on their own label and sold at shows and local record shops. It's estimated they put out about 2,000 copies of their debut album, and if you can get your hands on one, they're probably worth quite a bit of money. In 1989, during their senior year, the band was at a crossroads. Do they continue to pursue music or go to college? The band would give themselves 2 years to make a career in music or go back to school. The Death of a Dictionary, according to the Washington Post, would pique the interest of a local journalist who predicted the band would, and I quote, "have the potential to usurp the progressive rock territory staked out by U2 and REM." Soon enough, the band's manager started booking the band's shows at New York's infamous CBGB's venue and the 930 Club in Washington, D.C. It was these gigs that got the band the attention of an outfit named Giant Records, which helped the band produce their first demo with producer Jay Healy, who worked with John Mellencamp and the rock heroes REM. While the demo left the label disappointed, they allowed the group to take the tape and shop it around to other labels. That would lead to them signing with Radioactive Records. Soon afterwards, they changed their name to Live after drawing it out of a hat. The label would enlist Jerry Harrison of Talking Heads fame to produce the group's first album, 1991's Mental Jewelry. The album would prove to be a modest success, selling around 500,000 copies and going gold. The album was helped by college radio and MTV, who heavily promoted the single Operation Spirit, which originally made MTV's Buzzbin program. The song would go on to peak at number 9 on the modern rock charts. Mental Jewelry would be inspired by an Indian philosopher named Jiddu Krishnamurti. For a band that was in the early 20s, it was surprising to see the group singing with such philosophical depth. Kowalczyk would tell Spin magazine how he discovered the philosopher, revealing, "I picked up Krishnamurti's You Are the World in some kind of New Age bookstore when I was 18, when I was surrounded by all this baby talk philosophy, and I read it and thought, damn, this is so unique." So what did the philosopher Krishnamurti believe? Well, he was against idolizing people and argued that real revolution in one's mind couldn't be brought about by external factors, but rather oneself. Kowalczyk would tell Louder Sound how he approached the lyrics on Mental Jewelry, revealing, "It was a straightforward questioning of everything. The traditions you grew up in, automatic things that you just take for granted. There were a lot of light bulb moments, one after the other," he'd reveal. But critics were lukewarm to the album, labeling the group as young and naive, and the LA Times stated in their 1992 review of the album, "Live eventually wears out its welcome with constant earnest wheedling about the great existential and spiritual questions. To support the record, Live would hit the road with Public Image Limited and Blind Melon." As the band turned their attention to their follow-up record, they looked to their hometown for inspiration. Kowalczyk would tell Spin magazine, "We decided to go back and take a look at where we came from, our town, our friends, our roots. We wanted to slow down, take a break, and not be so theoretical in the new songs, and talk about what we've experienced in our lives." The band's roots even showed up on the back cover of the album, as the picnic area was an old stomping ground for the quartet. The picnic area is located just off Route 25 in Airville, Pennsylvania. Unlike hopelessness or nihilism, which were popular lyrical themes during the early 90s, Live focused on the themes of love, religion, and life. Rolling Stone magazine would perfectly summarize the band's approach to music, saying, "Kowalczyk is not only willing to believe there's beauty and meaning in this alienated age, he's also bold or foolish enough to try to figure out what it is, pointing the way for an audience that welcomes the possibility of transcendence." A perfect example of this was the song Lightning Crashes, which finds beauty, even in tragedy, by celebrating the transcendence of life in the music video, which dealt with the death of a woman and the birth of a child. After the song was written, Live would dedicate the track to a schoolmate named Barbara Lewis, who was killed by a drunk driver in 1993. Kowalczyk would write the song in his parents' house just before he moved out, and would tell Louder Sound, "One thing was that we wanted to make things more dynamic. We were really into that chinky rhythm guitar thing, but I was thinking about how we could sell things even more emotionally, and you need big guitars for that, so we plugged in," he'd say. Despite the success of Mental Jewelry, Live's label allotted only several weeks for them to record their follow-up record. The band would reconvene at Pachyderm Studio in the same space where Nirvana recorded In Utero in Minnesota. The group would credit producer Jerry Harrison, who returned the second time around, for helping them take their songwriting to the next level and providing lyrical inspiration. As Kowalczyk would tell Louder Sound, "Me and him would have these really deep conversations about spirituality and philosophy. He was really into the lyrics I was writing. He really inspired me in a lot of ways," he'd say. Released several weeks after the death of Kurt Cobain, Throwing Copper catapulted Live to a whole new level of superstardom, getting them gigs on MTV's Unplugged, David Letterman, and they appeared on countless magazine covers, not to mention the hours of attention MTV and rock radio gave to their singles. The band would tour with PJ Harvey and Veruca Salt. By the way, I've done a whole video on Veruca Salt's career, the link is down below. Even though Mental Jewelry was well received by MTV, the band's label was a little weary of getting too much exposure on the network, as the label spokesperson would tell Billboard magazine around the time of the album's release that the band suffered from a credibility problem after Mental Jewelry. The reason Mental Jewelry had a credibility problem was because MTV first embraced the band back in 1991, but a lot of radio programmers, according to Billboard magazine, weren't fans of the band and felt pressured to play Operation Spirit on rock radio. To combat this, they released Selling the Drama as the album's first single because the label didn't see much crossover appeal, and they heavily worked college and modern rock radio rather than pushing MTV early on. The song ended up topping the modern rock charts, and the label was wrong about the single as it did have crossover appeal. Despite the early success, Throwing Copper took almost a year to top the Billboard charts, peaking at number 1 for the week of May 5th, 1995. But what was the moment that pushed the band over the edge? The band released 4 singles from the record, all of which fared pretty well. The band played the 25th anniversary of Woodstock in September of 1994. Then tragedy struck in April of 1995, the Oklahoma City bombings that killed over 150 people. Following the events, a local radio station DJ mixed the song Lightning Crashes with speeches from President Clinton, newscaster Tom Brokaw, as well as ambulance and fire truck sirens. You can actually hear that remixed version on YouTube. At that time, America was mourning, and as the band's drummer Chad Gracey would tell Penn Live, it sort of became the de facto song for the bombing. It was definitely very bittersweet and surreal and strange to see this impactful event in our country and then have a song that we wrote be associated with it. The tragic events would push Throwing Copper to the top of the charts, and Lightning Crashes would stay on the pop charts for 26 weeks, peaking at number 6. It would be ironic that label executives originally hated Lightning Crashes and reportedly told the band the song would never become a single. Live's label thought the song was too long and too different from what modern rock radio stations were playing and almost refused to release it. As the touring cycle ended for Throwing Copper, the band suffered two major problems: overexposure, and some critics still didn't give the band their due. Louder Sound pointed to one review in 1995 that popular rock journalist Robert Christgau wrote about the band, saying, "On stage, this intently mediocre young band is a U2 without a guitar sound. On record, it's REM without songs." Regarding the overexposure, their manager would tell the LA Times in 1995, "We make decisions based on the long term. I'm not interested in Live being the biggest thing in 1995. I'm interested in Live being around for 20 years. Following a grueling 18-month tour to support Throwing Copper, the band took some time off and reassembled for their follow-up album. According to the Washington Post, groupies supposedly started scouring South Central Pennsylvania, including the band's hometown of York, in search of Ed and his bandmates. Fans even located Ed's mom, even though she has a different last name now, and they would leave letters for her in her mailbox. Not only that, but record labels soon started to scout the area, with some people thinking Pennsylvania would become the new Pacific Northwest of the rock and roll world. Live wanted to emulate their heroes REM by not repeating their past sound, and the quartet retreated to Jamaica, renting a mansion for several weeks to work on their next album. Kowalczyk would tell MTV News in 1997, "I thought we were going to go down there and really mellow out, and write really mellow songs, and we ended up going down there and rocking. It was this totally unexpected surge of energy, but these songs in particular have a sexier sort of feel. You just can't help when you're in the sun and you're baking under it, and you're just there in the whole island thing," he'd say. Released in early 1997, Secret Samadhi topped the Billboard charts and went double platinum, but it only sold a quarter of the copies of its predecessor. The album saw the band coming to terms with their newfound fame, with guitarist Chad Taylor telling Guitar World in 1997, "Secret Samadhi is less a record about who we were in the past than who we've become. Throwing Copper was sort of about small-town life in York, Pennsylvania, about how we escaped that, and we're looking back on it. Now it's hard for us to relate to the people who wrote Throwing Copper. We're immensely different now, leading different lifestyles. I don't think this record comes from a place like York. It comes from playing in front of 30,000 people and traveling around the world," he'd say. The band followed up Secret Samadhi with 1999's The Distance to Here, which produced the radio-friendly hits The Dolphins Cry and Run to the Water, which peaked at number 3 and number 14 on the modern rock charts. If Secret Samadhi represented the great upheaval in the members' career following their monumental success in the mid-90s, The Distance to Here was an album that showed a band a little more comfortable with where they were at. Kowalczyk, who would now be married, also had a different perspective on life and would disappear into the desert for several weeks with his guitar to write material for Distance to Here. Gone were the up-tempo tracks, which were now replaced with Kowalczyk's mid-tempo songs. 2 years later, in 2001, the band would release their 5th album, appropriately titled 5, but the band's chart success seemed to fade, with the record only peaking at number 22 and not even going gold. Radioactive Records at this time was gone, and the band was now dealing with MCA, and the relationship with the label quickly went south. There were disagreements over the album artwork, whether to release a single, and music videos, all of which led to the album getting delayed by almost a year. Released a week after 9/11, the song Overcome received a lot of airplay following the tragedy, and according to Kowalczyk, the band gave the song away for free on their website, and soon enough it was picked up by rock radio. According to guitarist Chad Taylor, the material on 5 was never supposed to be released, revealing the goal was to prepare songs for the next studio session. MCA got a hold of the material and pushed us to call it an album. Taylor would reveal in the same post that their label was having a lot of success with No Doubt, and they pushed Live to change their image. The band would release 2 more albums, 2003's Birds of Prey and 2006 Songs from Black Mountain, before the group took a hiatus in 2009. But 1 year later in 2010, it was announced that Kowalczyk had left the band. He would embark on a solo career, and soon enough an ugly legal battle ensued between him and his ex-bandmates. His former bandmates would sue him for breach of contract relating to their publishing agreement and touring using the name Labe, and he in turn would countersue. Kowalczyk would contend that the lawsuits were done maliciously because his bandmates were jealous that he was pursuing a solo career. In 2014, his ex-bandmates would talk to Louder Sound, with guitarist Chad Taylor revealing, "Yeah, on the past 3 records we were basically just Ed's backing musicians trying to hang on in there." Kowalczyk's former band members would claim the singer wanted more of the publishing royalties and a lead singer bonus since he wrote most of the melodies and lyrics. Louder Sound, basically we missed each other. The uniqueness of what we do together combined with the incredible history we have with each other. And in 2018 the band put out their latest release, an EP titled Local 717. And the following year in 2019, they teamed up with Bush and Our Lady Peace to go on to celebrate the 25th anniversaries of the records Throwing Copper, 16 Stone, and Naveed. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe. We'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.